So
now, when you go
Sunday! Only in race plate 72, U.S. 30 Dragster. The Coca-Cola bottles of Chicagoland present the Mr. Chevrolet USA Super Dual Bike Car Showdown. From Pennsylvania, it's three-time national champion Jungle Jim Lieberman. From Dallas, Texas, Martin Martin, Drag on Vega. From Alabama, the bold one, Bobby Wood. From New Jersey, Bruce Wesson's fantastic USA 1.
so awesome. Love that, man.
honestly,
gets old.
yeah, when it flies by, it's like totally gives you the goosies, right? So,
Yeah. Did you ever make it out to Carlsbad Raceway in San Diego before they shut it down?
I did. I went there in '96, I think.
When they had some of the nitro cars there, like the nostalgia cars, that was my very first nitro car I ever saw. Like single mag nitro car. But
I didn't see them run. They did, that's when they first started doing, what is that? Where they just fire them up, right?
Oh, like a nitro night or something like that? Or whatever
yeah,
it is?
but I can't remember what the heck they call it. Cacklefest. That's when they
Cacklefest,
first
yes.
started doing the Cacklefest, and it was like, that's all they did, right?
Oh.
So it wasn't that you didn't have the experience of nostalgic nitro going by you and the bottom end falling out at 1,000-foot mark, right? So,
Right. Yeah. No, that was my very first, and then at Pomona was my very first twin mag, like real deal nitro car going by where you can't even look at it when it goes by. That was awesome. Yeah.
well, I was lucky. I grew up in Central Illinois. We had a track there. It was called Motion Raceway, and it was a little piece of Lions in Central Illinois because it was the warm-up spot for everybody for the U.S. Nationals. So
Yeah.
as a kid, you go in there and you pay, I don't remember what we paid, $1 to get in the place maybe. And you'd have Shirley Muldowney and freaking Don Perdome and Dick LaHaye. And I mean, it was like all the big names at the time, you know, and they would be there testing and tuning. That's where Glidden used to do shakedown passes on his car before the U.S. Nationals was Motion. And it was fun, man. We had a good crowd and some heavy hitters, and and I kind of assumed all tracks were like that. And when that sucker closed in '84, we started going to the other tracks, and I'm like, man, where's my little red wagon at? How come that didn't come around this year? Or the Hemi Under Glass car? Or, all that stuff used to test out there at Motion before the U.S. Nationals, and it was they used to make a big deal out of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, but back to the grind. Today is Wednesday. It's another Wednesday night Tech Talk Live. I hope everybody liked the thumbnail. I'm going to try to get a little bit more creative on the thumbnails when it comes to Shane and I as a duo. I thought it was pretty awesome to throw some Starsky and Hutch out there.
That's good.
Yeah, there's a few guys in here that's throwing out some pretty good comments here so far. But before we do that, I'm going to welcome everybody. Mr. Uncle Squirrel is here. Fab Race Mod Repeat from Northeast Dragway, Chris Cox. I'm going to be out there this weekend. That's the opening event of this year, which is the open season shakedown. And we're testing out a couple of new things. We're going to do the 28-10-5 NA class, and they're trying out a street class that's a heads-up format. And so we're going to see how that goes. But there's a lot of limitations on that street class to try to keep it a real street car, right? So I hope it goes well. Mopar Man 1978's in here. Scarlet the Four-Eyed Cuda. Mostly old parts. Ron Ward, that is, the voice of the No Name Nationals. Nice. David James. Danny Boyd's in here. Let's see. Tom Brown is here. And Barrow's Garage. Yep, there's Kim Barrows himself. Okay. Nice. Let's see. Does it made it? Oh,
I got one while we're waiting for this tech to come in. You were talking to me about the engine that you were going to do. And the only thing, I'm not going to say anything about it, but I was going to say before we went live is that when you offset grind to crank and you go D-stroke it, you got to be careful with the oiling, because whenever you D-stroke it, you're going to be pushing into the oiling groove. You follow me? Whenever you offset stroke it and you make it bigger, because the thrust side is where the oil comes in on the crankshaft when you D-stroke it, so they're going to have to fish mount that thing slightly different. So I would send it to a reputable place like Ohio Crankshaft if they're going to do it. That way
Okay.
they'll do it correctly. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I've done that quite a bit. De-stroked a lot of crankshafts, and you got to really watch that oiling groove when you de-stroke them.
Well, I think it takes it from a 3.4 to a 3.25.
Yeah, so
So it's going to
yeah,
move
we're
it.
gonna
I don't know about how much it's going to move it, but yeah, it would be about 100,000s.
Yeah, it's 100,000s, and then that, because that the way that goes in, so they're going to have to fish mount that thing kind of big, and then they teardrop it, so that way it gets oil all the way across. If it's not done right, you'll starve the one side of the rod bearing for oil.
Oh,
Yeah, because
yeah, fair enough.
it goes. Yeah, so it's kind of a thing. Yeah, just look at the crank and you'll see what I'm talking about. When you see
Okay.
the oiling, you'll like, oh yeah, I see what he's talking about.
All right. Well, yeah, that's what I want to do is de-stroke it. But I've been doing today. I did some research on Arma steel, which is what those 300 Buick crankshafts are made of.
Yeah.
And they're it's just cast iron, with some extra manganese in it. So
Like rich Corinthian leather.
yes, rich Corinthian leather, the same as regular leather, just Corinthian.
Corinthian.
Yeah. Somebody was Ron Ward here was mentioning that the picture of Shane reminds me of Greg Tortels from the band Dred Zeppelin.
Right.
So maybe that with that afro thing you got going on there from Starsky, then or Hutch, or whichever one is what. I don't even remember. Gosh, that was from my young kid years. Was that show? Let's see here. We got Sand Mountain Ballistics is in here. Buck Does It. Twisted Mopar Garage. Let's see. A Cove. I'm trying to run through all these. The famous John Wilburn, or infamous John Wilburn, however you want to look at it. Castori? Castori. Evening, everyone. I don't know. C.S. Toreri? Maybe? I don't know. I murdered it enough. I'm going to move on. Levi's Backyard Performance. Big Belly Racing. And I think that's it. I think we got everyone. Michael Schmidt is in here. Let's see. And Michael Schmidt is asking, does No Name Nationals include bracket racing classes for ET Challenge cars? That it does. Last year's winner was, if you want to look up his channel, was a fella by the name of Just Mopar Joe.
Yeah.
Took out, I don't know, Ricky Gervais? Is that right?
But also
Somebody.
too, if you're ET challenged, you can just go and do call outs. I'm ET challenged. I have a Slant 6. I just went out and just started racing people.
Or you can let everybody think that you're ET Challenge and just spray the crap out of them.
Right? Exactly.
Always look like you're that wounded dog, right?
Always.
If you ever, I'll tell you one of the coolest videos, and I don't know if I still have it up on YouTube or not. Under the AHRA channel, there used to be a video, and I might have it hidden. I can look right now as we're talking, but I'll look, so I'll let you know. On the AHRA channel, originally before it was the AHRA channel, it was just my personal channel of crap, right? And on there, I had a video that was from like I want to say 1992, 1991 to maybe 3 of what is that dang thing called? Fast Street Car America Shootout.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right? It was the video that they used to sell at like the Western Auto, right? At the checkout aisle.
Yep.
But I got it when I joined, like, I think the NMCA maybe, and they sent you that video. But it's about 2 hours long. In that video, Rick Dyer, who was famous at the time, having a 55 Chevy, it was blue and white, right? And it was just a bad SOB. And it ended up in, I don't know, somebody else's inventory. But this car ended up winning the Fast Street Car America Shootout in whatever year time frame this was, 92, 93. And that thing showed up at the Fast Street Car America Shootout with smoke just rolling out of it like it's a dead duck, right?
Yeah.
I don't know where that thing is at. I must have taken it out. Let me see here. Huh. But yeah, I must have taken that video out. I had that video up here for a while. I must have pulled it down. And but I thought it was pretty cool that if I put that up there, then everybody could watch it. But I guess not. But Rick Dyer showed up and the car was already wounded, was smoking pretty good. It went into the final round. It had, I think, burned up ringland off of a piston, so it got even worse, right? And he looked like the wounded duck, and he ended up just cleaning everybody's clock with like 354 degrees of a complete circle of a piston left, right? So it only had 6 degrees of melted shrapnel stuck to the plug, to the electrode.
Hey, can you back up a couple questions here to Bear Rose Garage? It's probably about 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 9 up.
9 up from Bear
back.
Rose. Question for Professor P, that one?
Yep, that's the
Okay.
one.
Do you know of anyone that has cam options for a 55 239 Ford Y block? Mm-hmm. Custom grind is out of the question. The one I have, what is that noise?
I don't know. Don't know.
Okay. The one I have is new, just looking for other options.
Okay. Yeah, go to John Mummert Machine. He basically specializes in Ford Y blocks. He's out of El Cajon, California. I know him personally. He's a great guy, and that's all he does is Ford Y blocks.
He also had a Ford Y block out of Verona that ran in the 6s.
Yes, and he's fast.
In the 8th mile.
Yeah, it's fast. So, so check that out. Go to, it is called, if you just type in Ford Y blocks, that it comes up, or John Mummert Machine. It's at 14368 Old Highway 80 in El Cajon, California. Right down the street from my house. Well, my old house, actually. And then go 2 down for Big Belly Racing. He's got another question right here.
Well, I'm actually, I went back to the beginning to see if we missed anything.
No, that was, I already checked.
Okay. All right. So Big Billy's asking, what year Slant 6 has the better performance? Cylinder head?
None. Actually, the basically, you want something like 75, I believe, is when they put hardened seats, or is it 73? I forget. I don't know. You can Google it.
Well, if it's 73, then get a 75, and you'll be covered for sure.
Yeah, and then I personally like, they call them drool tubes. You can get something in the 80s where they don't have the drool tubes, so that way you can just run a tapered type of seat. You don't have to worry about taking the washers off. But as far as that goes, really there's none. And if you're looking for the strongest block, the older blocks are the heaviest ones. Anything that's going to be, like, say, a hydraulic lifter is going to be a much lighter block. But remember, you're dealing with very low horsepower here. Even if you turbocharge it, you're probably going to be making 300 horse. They're well strong enough to handle what you're going to throw at them for that. And the crankshaft, once you get into the hydraulic ones again, they're going to be kind of like a cast one, where the earlier ones are going to be forged. So the cast ones actually work a little better because they're much lighter. I think it's like 15 pounds lighter, if memory serves me correctly. And then the rods are thinner too. So everything's just lighter in the later blocks. So if I were to do it all over again, I would get in a hydraulic lifter block. Everything's just lighter.
Huh.
I think it's 81 and newer.
I was actually going to say that. I've heard Tony say it like probably 25 times because people would ask that same question.
Yeah.
And he would just go with the light rotating assembly one, right? Which is 81 and up.
Yeah. Now, from what I'm doing, I'm getting on the road and I'm staying, my car is designed to get on the freeway and go 80 miles an hour. I don't care about rotating mass because I'm not accelerating. I'm just going. So it didn't really make a difference. But if you're accelerating and that's what you're looking for, performance, get the lightest one you can.
Huh. So Danny Boyd's saying that old Poncho 389 said Arma Steel 2. It was a GM thing. And then ironically, the crankshaft of the Buick 300 is made of Arma steel. And here's what got me on this. I don't know. It's a trip down the rabbit hole of Arma steel. It just the name itself leads you to believe that it's made of steel, right? And okay, so here's something weird. They've made a majority of parts, a lot of parts, out of Arma steel, but the Buick 300 crankshaft has it cast into the crankshaft that says Arma steel, like it's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And here's the craziness behind it. I've had 5 of these engines, and one of them had over 200,000 miles. And you know what I had to do to the crank? Polish
What's
it.
that?
Polish it.
That's
That was it. It came out standard. I had one that had a broken rod, and the big end was still on the crank. And then where he had smacked the other half of the rod, it did was nick the crankshaft, and they cleaned it up, and it didn't nick it on the bearing surface. It just nicked it on the throw, right? And they cleaned it up, and then rebalanced the thing and said, "Here you go, man, standard crank." Like, you gotta be kidding me. And it got me thinking that, man, maybe there's something to this Arma steel. So I started doing some research on it, and you would be amazed at what is made of Arma steel in GM inventory. It was a hot ticket, about 60 to 64. Okay, so the heavy-duty nodular iron hogsheads from the 9.3 Pontiacs, Arma steel. The crankshaft for the all-out race version Pontiac 421, Arma steel, right?
Wow.
But the connecting rods for pretty much all Pontiac V8s at that time, Arma steel. And that's what ended up being their demise. Because for some reason, it doesn't have that, the strength in a, what do you call it? Like where the stress is straight up and down on it. It's like, it's cast iron, so it's flexible, right? But with the extra manganese in it, that's what makes it Arma steel.
Oh,
it
gotcha.
makes it brittle. It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't have that springiness to it. So it's weird. I thought maybe there was something neat to it, like it was a cast steel crank or something. Because like I said, I've got 5 of these cranks. I never had to do anything to them. So. Tom Brown Sandals, any headway coming up on the stock 300 and modded 300, 350 dyno? Okay, I'll let you know what's going on, because that thing actually kind of pissed me off, and I'm one of those people where I get pissed off, and the thing just goes on the back burner till I'm not pissed off at it anymore. And that's kind of where you're talking about the Mule and the What If 300. Now, the What If 300 hasn't pissed me off. It's not really on the back burner or anything. The plan was, the Mule 300 was going to do the work. So we were going to dyno it with just a kind of cobbled together 300 that I put together. I had it on the start stand. And I ran into a problem. I needed a flywheel for one. And I ordered one from Rock Auto. It was for a Chevrolet. I tried to send it back. I had waited too long to send it back. And so I had to eat it. And then, a couple of guys that were supposedly... fans of the Mr. Rotter's neighborhood were going to send me one, and I never got one. And then, let's see, no one makes one. TA Performance is the only one that sells one. They're $350, which is it's outside of my price range, but that didn't really matter, because here was the big kicker. When I tried to set up the dyno, because I originally booked it all in July, so that in Thanksgiving weekend, I could do 3 dynos tests on Thanksgiving weekend with the Buick 300. We were going to do the 300 as is, the 300 with 65 small chamber heads, and the 300 with a set of 64 aluminum heads, and the 4-barrel intake, to see what kind of numbers the whole thing does.
Yeah.
Right? All you're doing is changing the top end, and it gives you an idea. The dyno guys, they broke the dyno. They gave me every freaking excuse in the book. So let's see, January, I finally just kicked the dyno guys to the curb, because we were supposed to do the super stock motor and that 300 at the same time. And I got pissed off, and I just shut the whole thing off. And now I got to get my head out of my ass and figure out where to get a flywheel, what kind of flywheel I need, because I want to do that turbocharged 350 Buick as well. And then I need to find a dyno shop, and I actually have an idea that might work out. If you're familiar with Butler Pontiacs, I haven't called them, so please don't bug them. But if you're familiar with Butler Pontiacs, they're only about an hour and a half from here.
Really?
Yeah, they're down in Lawrenceburg. And I was going to go down there and plead my case to them, like, look, these guys are giving me a hard time because I got to reset up their dyno because it's a Buick. You guys, if anybody should have some sympathy for me, it should be you.
Right.
That's why you bought your own dyno, right? Because you have Pontiacs, right? So,
yeah, exactly. There's nothing for that, right? Yeah.
Right. It's just like, it's once you set it up for something, and the Pontiac will be relatively close. So it actually uses the same frame mounts. in the car. So that means technically the motor mounts, if I put a Buick motor mount on it in the small block, it'll use the Pontiac frame mount, which would be whatever they got set up in their dyno for the Pontiacs. And,
I just Googled that. Butler Performance is not far from me either.
no, they're in Lawrenceburg. They're about halfway between us.
Yeah, they're halfway, exactly. Yeah. That'd be kind of a cool drive. I'd come out there and watch that.
Danny Boyd's wanted to know, was Rick Dyer the guy that did Dyer blowers? I don't know. I don't think so. I think his car was naturally aspirated, but let's see.
Can you back up one? Back up a few here?
Sure. Did I blow past something?
Yes. Yeah. There's a... Go ahead and finish this one. And
This
then
one
we'll
here?
Go. Yep, you got it. This is actually kind of
This is Andy from Unity Motorsports. What's up, folks? Shane, have you ever had or seen an issue running a melanized distributor gear on a SADI core cam?
No. A melanized gear, steel gear, can basically run on a cast iron, a SADI core, which is like a ductile iron style, or a billet steel. There's no problem with that at all. This comes up quite a bit. That's the reason why I wanted to hit this. I have a little chart here. So a cast iron, you can run a melanized, an iron. This is on your distributor. Melanized, an iron, and a composite. On a SADI, you can run a melanized steel or a composite. On a billet steel, you can run a melanized, a bronze alloy, or a composite also. So, yeah. No problem at all.
Man, that's a lot of gear information. Or you could run yourself a small block Buick, and the one benefit of having a small block Buick, which no one runs, is that the gear is not pressed on or anything like that. It actually just slides on and is bolted in place with a keyway. So, pretty interesting. Okay, so mostly old parts. Ron Ward says, question for you guys: why in stock Eliminator does the rule book stipulate 0 modifications to the firewall? More specifically, why must holes and cutouts be covered rather than welded shut?
Fire, isn't it?
Well, they have to be covered because of fire, but I'm wondering why he's saying it's covered rather than welded shut. What would be? I don't know. And I guess maybe that's so that I would think in stock Eliminator, the reason why the firewall would have to remain exactly as was so that you can't push the engine back.
Yeah.
And if you weld on it, it can be covered up to look like it's the factory setup, but yet you're allowed to weld, so it'd be hard to identify.
Yeah. That's actually what I did on my 68 is I just riveted the holes on there and then put some seam sealer on it for that reason, so that way it's not welded.
Well, I plan on doing the same exact thing for my 63 Buick Special.
Yeah.
But I have, and of course that thing's not going to run this year. I am so far behind now. But I do have a cool plan. You know how you cover them with aluminum, right?
Yep.
I'm going to take it one step further. There used to be this really awesome trick that everybody called, that was called engine turned aluminum. And you have to pay good money for that crap, right? It's like literally putting it on a drill press.
Yep.
Or you can just lay it out with a scribe and then just have at it with your drill and like a tennis ball with some sandpaper on it.
I've done that. I've actually marked it out with a Sharpie. I squared it out, and then just went and it looked turned.
That's exactly what I'm going to do. It's going to look engine turned, and then what I'm going to do is clear coat it and put it right in place. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't ever have to go in there and polish it or turn it again. So, let's see. John Wilburn says John Cope has put a bounty on Just Mopar Joe at the brackets at No Name Nationals. So $50 to take him out, $100 to take him out while running a CRT sticker, $150 to take him out while running a Cope Racing transmission sticker and Cope Racing transmissions parts.
How about this? I double that. I'll double it. I'll match whatever he has right there.
Wow. There you go. You heard it from the man himself, Professor P.
But you got to have it Slant Daily Garage sticker on there too. I'll be handing them out for free. So yeah, come on over and I'll match this.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, there you go. One up.
Yep. So think about that, Mopar Joe, man. They got a bounty on you, sucker.
I don't know if he's even watching. Yeah, I bet his ears are burning right now.
Right. Yes. So yeah, come on over. You take him out. Come on over and claim it. I'll be there.
Bear Road's Garage. It's John Mummert.
Yes.
Mummert, I think.
Yeah, Mummert.
Mummert. Okay.
John Mummert, and it's John Mummert Machine. I have a link here. I just don't know how to post it while I'm in here in StreamYard.
You can actually post it in the chat as like a comment.
Can't you
pull it? Can't
I can't get in the chats?
Oh, really?
No,
Are you
not
sure?
when I'm in StreamYard. I can't post anything.
Really? I thought you can see. Can't you see the chats?
I can see them, but I can't post anything.
Down at the bottom, it doesn't say post a comment? Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Well, just email it to me. I'll post it in there.
Here, I'll do that real quick then.
Let's see. I want to... Fabrace Mod Repeat says, I want a set of those Mummert heads for my 292 project.
New email?
Yeah. Danny Boyd says, Arma still don't like being rods. Yes, correct. It likes being... in the case of rods, it likes being external of the block as a rod.
Let's see. Inbox, where are you? Mr. Dallas Brown, there you are. And
51 Flatty says, Professor P, what are costs like at Ohio Crankshaft, and are they slow?
No, they're actually really good. In fact, when I was at Crower, they were the only ones that we actually recommended and would keep the warranty on our crankshafts. So they're really good with the crankshafts, and they're the ones that actually did all the work on my crankshafts for my engines that I have currently right now here. They're very good. As far as cost, you get what you pay for. I'm just going to be honest with you. They're good people, and they turn around, and you can give them a number down to the 10th of a thousandth. I wanted to hit certain numbers, like let's just say 2.5554, and they hit that. So,
did you mail them your crank or something?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I wanted it done right. If you're going to get it done, I wanted it done right, because I needed numbers on different ones, because the block that I had, was line honed, and some of the bearings I had to use ups and downs to kind of, get the clearance I wanted. So they had to hit an exact number.
Huh. Well, Rocky Myers is asking, whatever became of the Buick-powered Benz Lemons Racer? Okay, we had... where did everything started going off the rails? But we still got it. It's still here. I want to say it was like we were going to go to Bowling Green, but it fell on the same weekend as No Name Nationals last year, and that's where everything started sideways. So then we pushed it back to December. We got the car running and driving, and it didn't have a high gear. So the transmission we picked up off of Craigslist, it's not like it's burned up high gear. It literally had water in it when I picked it up. We're assuming that the valve body, the spool valves in the valve body were probably stuck, and it just wasn't going into high gear. No big deal. But then I noticed that we couldn't get any torque out of it, and I could not figure out why. And the only conclusion, after changing the distributor 2-3 times, the pickup in it, I went through the carburetor 2-3 times, and I jetted it down, jetted it up, and nothing changed. I really spent some time diagnosing it at that point, and I really think I might have the cam off one tooth on the timing chain. Is what I believe. But it didn't matter, because then the rear seal started leaking. And so
It's got to come out.
It's got to come out, and I got to put a rear seal in it, and then it gives me the opportunity to fix the cam being off one tooth, if that's what the case is. You got to remember, and this thing is a giant pain in the ass, right? This car is a giant pain in the ass, because you're limited to $500. Okay, $500. So the engine's made of entirely used parts. Right, I used lifters off of a used cam with used timing chain in it, and I don't know how used it was. It was just junk stuff that I had. So Danny Boyd's asking, was it the rope seal? No, it actually looks like it might be coming out of, if you've ever seen a Buick 350 main cap on the rear main, it kind of looks like an FE Ford, where it has essentially your rope seal, but on the sides it has two little square rubber seals, I guess you want to call it, but it's not really rubber. Yeah. It's anything with a deep skirted block is the same way. Yeah. And it looks like it might be coming out of there. So I'm going to pull the cap, and hopefully everything is going to be okay. The rear main seal that's in it appears to be all right at that point, and I can just clean everything up with some brake clean, and then put some new RTV on it and send it back home. But this time, with some new side seals. So I didn't reuse them. It's just I think one of them didn't set up properly because it just appears that it's leaking out the side, but I can't quite tell. I'm just gonna pull the whole thing apart and find out what's going on. Yeah, no, it's actually it's Danny Boyd saying that's what Mercedes do. No, this one's just kind of this was a throw together low buck to begin with. I mean, I got $75 in the motor, and that's because I had to get new rings. The rest of the stuff was used. I'm lucky it has oil pressure, to be honest with you. Jonathan Couch is asking, how loose was the timing chain? Was it 10 degrees from that? It was actually sloppy enough that I was worried about it, but I didn't have another one, and I had to buy one. And it was at the beginning of the project, and it was like you have $500 for the whole car, right? So the only thing you're not limited to that $500 on is safety stuff, and tires and brakes fall under that safety stuff. Okay, so we still had to get the rest of the car functioning, right? I had to make some kind of exhaust, and I don't know if you guys ever saw the exhaust, but it's nuts.
I saw it. I saw it in person.
They're going to make me take that off.
Really?
Yeah, and I argue with them. I say that a Stutz Bearcat has exhaust like that from the factory.
Oh,
but they want me to take it off. They don't want your exhaust external of the car, and I'm like, but it's external even under the car.
Right? Yeah. But it's under the car then,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And that's their argument. It's just like, it's out of the way of being damaged. Like, well, if somebody's tire falls off and you run it over, no, it's not. But I don't know. I still don't understand why. And I know the safety concerns of having the exhaust run along the fender and down at the bottom of the door. I'm the one that had to deal with it because I had to lean over the fender and work on stuff, and you'd find out that pipe's still hot. Real fast.
Real quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What else is there? Questions? Oh, man, I've missed a bunch.
Yeah. It's all right.
Well, we'll grab this one right here. So, what is the least you can go with the cylinder wall thickness? My buddy's 413 block board, 80 over, 426 cracked. Mine is bored 20 thousandths less than his, but worked for 10 years so far.
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer. That's the reason why I got a sonic checker. You want there's so many people that have different theories on this, but I personally want to see at least 150 thousandths. At least on the thrust side. Some people like more, some people like less. The reason why I put concrete in my small block Mopar is because it's bored. I think it's 660 over this time because it had some skirts in it, and I had to put a sleeve in one of them. So, so I put concrete in it. So you can get away with a lot less thickness at that point because there's going to be less vibration on it. Because all the thickness is going to do is cut down on the harmonics and the vibration and allow the rings to seal better. I don't know. This is a hard. I don't want to give you a hard number. I would
There's
talk
actually an article on this. There's an article that I looked up years ago.
What did they say? Did they give you a definitive number?
No, they didn't.
Nah, that's right.
And it depends. Okay, the sonic checker is what they recommend.
Yep.
Okay, and then I can't remember because if you have your block filled, it's actually thinner than when you don't, right? Uh-huh. But I don't think they even give you a number in that thing. I wanted to say the rule of thumb is 150 or up, right?
Yeah.
And
that's on the thrust side. That's on the thrust side. And also too, it really depends on how big the water jacket itself is. Does the water jacket, like on the BGE blocks for the 6.4, the water jacket's only like the top 2 inches of the block, and then it's basically filled with cast iron below that. And that's the reason why those BGE blocks are the ones they put in the Demons, the Hellcats, the 6.4 trucks, the Scat Packs. Those are the ones that can handle like 15 to 1700 horse. And there's a reason for that. It's because of that water jacket. And so, that's the reason why I like the 400, big block Mopar, the low deck, is because it's a shorter deck, and so there's less basically bore to vibrate. There's just a stronger block in general. So it comes down to also to thrust angle of the rod, stroke, where your compression height is on the piston. There's RPM. So yeah, there's a lot of different factors. So unfortunately, I can't give you an answer on that, honestly.
Well, there's another factor that played in there that no one thinks of. It was bore size. The smaller the bore size, the less material you're allowed to have, right?
Yep.
But there's a lot to it. I would definitely look up that article because there's a lot of food for thought on that thing, depending on how big the bore is, how big the stroke is, how much metal is in the block to begin with. That's a big one. But because if you're looking at 455 Buick is the most flexible block I've ever seen in my life. They took metal out wherever they could. Okay. And the rule of thumb for a 455 Buick was they used to do was you did not bore it more than 20 over. If you wanted to drive it on the street, you did not go over 20 over. And that's because the more you took out, the thinner the block got, the more flexible it became.
Yeah.
But
hey, speaking of that, did you get my email? I sent you an email with the link for...
I'm sorry. I turned my email off when we started the show. Okay. How about this one? I'll look up my email real quick. Shane, I'm looking for a reverse rotation cam for a 4.3 Chevy. Any recommendations?
I don't know on this one. I know that they were plentiful. I know that I don't know if Comp carries them. I knew at one time that Crowder did, but I would try those two. I would try Comp first, then I would try Crowder. If not, then I would look at Racer's Junk and see if you can just find a used one. But a lot of guys were getting around that by just running a gear to gear on those, so that way the cam was running in the correct rotation, but then the engine was actually running backwards. So that way you could run a standard gear. So it was just, there's no chain, so that way it's gear to gear, so the cam goes the correct direction, the engine goes the opposite direction.
All right, I just posted a comment in there about the Mummert White Block Ford website. So
yep, that's it.
That's exactly what everybody was wanting. You go.
For Bear Rose Racing, there you go.
Yeah, I still think, gosh, those heads look so funky with the ports side by side, or top to bottom, or
top to bottom. Did you ever look at one of those intakes and how funky they look too?
Oh,
the
yeah.
intake looks the funkiest.
Yeah. Let's see. Danny Boyd's saying he wants to pick up the crank himself. I'm assuming if he delivered it to Ohio Crankshaft.
Yeah.
And I might just take him a 300 crank and be like, okay, offset grind it, turn it down to 325-inch stroke, and then I'll use these funky rods.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to where I work at, I can just pop it like a Lunati box, and they have all that foam packing in there, so it comes out pretty good.
Dr. Art is in the house. Okay. Let's see. Ron Ward says, mostly old parts. I enjoy seeing all the bracket racers do well at no-name nationals, but I'm particularly fond of a dark horse. If I was a betting man, I'd put some money on 318 Will Run. And you know what? It was 318 Will Run that went to the finals against Just Mopar Joe, I believe. Because he was the guy that had the van. 318
okay.
Will Run. And what was the other dark horse? Candy Cane in the 28-10-5 class. Guaranteed, probably the most undermotored car or vehicle in the class. And I think she went rounds.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I ran across this 318 Will Run guy on some videos here.
Uh-huh.
And I think he just... Was this the guy? He blew up his engine just recently? Was that him or no? Was it someone else?
I don't know.
I don't know.
He has a van. Like a 77 van. It was black.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that wasn't him then.
Let's see. And speaking of Candy Cane, here's the Big Block 402 channel.
Oh, nice.
Boring Build says, I have a 377 Mercury 6.2 multi-port injection, fuel-injected small block. Want to put a better cam in it. It's in my boat, Bravo 3 output, 25-foot boat cabin cruiser. Just want a little bit more, currently rated at 350 horse.
Honestly,
what's a 377 Mercury? Is that an LS? That's an LS motor, right?
I believe no small blocks. This is going to be small block a Chevrolet. I
Not 377 6.2.
is it maybe I don't know. I just know that a lot of these I just did regrinds on these things because of the let's see what a 377 is.
You know what? I'm if this is an LS platform, these things like not max RPM power because they turn at like say 4,500 all day long, right? Isn't that how they work?
Yeah, let's see here. Mercury Racing Scorpion 377 engine. That dude, it's a small block Chevrolet. I'm looking at it.
Really?
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, irony.
I agree, and I was like, wait a second. Yeah, but it's at least that's what it's showing here, just on the Googles. So, anyways, what I would do on those is take the camshaft out because those are going to have like water jacketed manifolds. So you got to be really careful with overlap on those. So you just can't slap a cam in those. I would basically, you want literally zero overlap on one of those things because otherwise it's going to come back in. So usually what we would do on those is just take the cam out when I would just do a regrind on them where you can just add 10 degrees of duration. Don't add any more lift to it. And that usually gives what you're looking for. And it will keep that wide LSA. So that's just my recommendation. Just regrind the camshaft and just put 10 degrees more in it.
Man, well, small block Chevy. I'm trying to think of what even came from the factory with more than 350 horse. I mean, you're looking at old 375 horse flat tap and stuff, but I'm sure this is a roller cam motor. And
yeah, I'm actually looking at. I'm trying to find a camshaft for one of these. That's why I didn't say anything. But if it's a roller, I mean, it's really simple deal. Just to
Well, the rule of thumb used to be throw an LT4 hot cam in them, but if it can't have any overlap, or you're on a budget because now the LT4 hot cam is like $600 something. Yeah, just have something ground.
you know what? Honestly, it is. It's a hydraulic roller. Yeah. So I just Googled it. Yeah. So it's a hydraulic roller. So just basically, it's a really simple regrind. And at that point, just put 10 degrees on it. Call it good.
Okay, what do we got coming up here? Let me catch up.
Where are we at? Oh, wow. We are behind, aren't we? Oh, wow. Yeah, we are.
Tom Brown saying, okay, does the ST300 and 700R4 use the same splined output shaft? That'd be like, well, you don't even have to put 300 ST. Is a Turbo 350 the same output shaft as a 700R4? I think the 700R4 was considered the heavier dutier of the GM line, and I think they have a Turbo 400 output shaft. I could be wrong.
I'm checking that out right now, because I want to say it is, but
wait, no, it's the same as a 4L60E. Right?
Turbo 350
It's
and the
same.
700R4 are the exact same shaft.
Yeah, same exact shaft.
Before I said yes to that, I wanted to check it because I knew that. I was like, wait a second, it is the same shaft. Yeah, because we were making them for our dyno, our transmission dyno, and I remembered that they were the exact same. But yeah.
Well, I was thinking, I know that 4L60E and Turbo 350 are the same, and so
Is
should
it
have
300
dawned on
ST?
me. The 300 ST is the predecessor to the Turbo 350. You probably didn't know that. It's what the Turbo 350 is based off of.
Oh, okay. Well, then it should. It should. As long as it's the same spline count, it should be fine.
What I like about the Super Turbine 300 and overdrive transmissions is the 204R bolts directly in place.
Oh,
and it uses the same drive shaft, the same cross member, all of it. Makes it great.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. Let's see.
Hey, go down to first responder.
Okay. Is it this one? No.
No, it's back up. He was asking about the block fill. He wants to know how much to fill up the block. Typically, what I try to do is I try to fill it up so that way the top 1.5 to 2 inches are left exposed, or just go to the bottom or slightly below where the water comes into the block. Don't fill that up. That's where most of the heat is produced. After that, usually expansion rate's already gone at that point. It is going to absorb now, so it is going to be a much heavier block, and so you're going to have a better cooling system just because of that. But that way you'll be able to cool the block a little better. And a lot of people, when they put concrete in the block, they'll reverse the water flow, so that way you can heat it up from the head and then bring it down, so that way you can run more compression on it too.
Okay, I did not see anything from that guy.
734. For me, it just shows it. It was first responder. There was a lot of people talking about blocks, and it's way back there. It was before you posted the Y block.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll keep moving forward.
Yeah, just keep on moving forward.
Greg McDonald says, when buying used heads and intake manifold, is there a quick way to check if they have been milled too much to fit together on your engine build? Not really. You're pretty much taking a gamble on that when you buy that stuff. And I guess the smart thing to do is there's no possible way you can check it without having your block there, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
That's the problem. That's the thing where you're hoping. What you do is you flip the intake manifold around and look at the bottom of the intake manifold, the pad. There generally is a pad that seals the China rails on the block. And if the pad is still there and it still looks like it's milled like when it was from the factory, you're generally okay. The cylinder heads, man, they're tough to make a call on because people have cut them things up.
And there's a reason why they're selling them. There's a reason why they're selling them.
Cast iron ones usually are the worst. My buddy bought a set in San Diego at the swap meet because they used to have a monthly cars show and swap meet. Now it's become like an annual thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's humongous. Yeah, Big Three. That's what it is. Yeah. And it was humongous. And my buddy saw this. Oh man, a set of big block Chevy square port heads. That's cheap. And I'm like, man, there's got to be a reason why they're cheap. I don't gamble on used cast iron heads usually because they're hard. People put them up there and you assume that they're a junkyard score, but they could be cracked, and then you can't fix that easily. I mean, it's expensive. So the money you're trying to save, you're probably better off just buying an aluminum head from somebody on Craigslist or Marketplace. But
hey, go one below that one for mostly old parts. The one right below it, right there. So he was saying that Gary blew up his 318. That was catastrophic. I ran across that video, and I was really looking at it because I blew up a lot of small block Mopars, and looking at how his blew up, it's exactly what used to happen to mine until I started redirecting oil. It was in the exact same spot. It was in the front end of the engine always.
Jonathan Couchy says, oh yeah, the Gary guy blew up his 318. Stroker says it made over 600 horsepower. Crank literally split up.
Yeah, if I'm looking at the video here, and he shows a picture of it, and literally it's the whole front end of the engine just basically came off, and that's exactly what I used to do. And I tell you, I ran over my crank. That's actually what happened. So many times I would blow out the front of the crank, and it would go right down.
Mostly old parts. And Russ Patrick says, Ron, I saw the video from Gary. It broke the front main cap out of the block. Crank in 3 pieces.
Exactly. And this is 100% from oiling, because the very last thing to get oil in those things is the front main. It comes down the whole passenger side. Then it goes down, and then that number one main goes up and feeds the front cam bearing. Then it feeds the number one rod. Then it also goes up and feeds that whole bank lifters on that side. So if you don't redirect oil, it just starves itself, and that's exactly what happens.
So Mopars, Mustangs, and minivans ask, are hot rodders moved to single wire alternators? It depends on what. Race cars, generally yes. Street rods, generally yes. Factory application, not so much.
I still run, on my Mopars, I still run a regular alternator that has a voltage regulator external, so that way I can turn it off when I'm going down the track. So you just have a switch on it, turn it off, you go down the track, you race, then you turn it back on.
I do that same thing with the internally regulated, just by doing the field wire. You just cut the field wire.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, that's what I do. Is I just cut the field wire, just cut the power going to it, and it shuts it off.
Yeah. But I'm notorious for doing funky stuff. I do the funky chicken, right? If you ever look at an alternator, there's literally like 5 different configurations on every alternator on the planet. Okay. Yeah. And what I do is I just go find one that has the, like how I want to do it. Like, so a Buick generally has the 2 ears across from each other. So you'll have your 2 bolt holes directly 180 out. Mm-hmm. So I'll go find an alternator in the junkyard that's 180 out, and I'll just cut it off of a whatever. If it's on a Nissan Sentra, it's on a Nissan Sentra. If it's on and the Ford is the one that I usually go for, it's because they're easy. The 3G alternators were like 150 amp, right? You could probably weld off of one of them suckers. And you can get them at the junkyard for $20. Yeah. The coolest thing is they're all 180 out. Or you have when they went to the bolt down ones, the 4 bolts, that was generally during the mod motor days. Yeah. If you go to the Windsor heyday, which was like 92 to about 96, you can find some that are 180 across, and they'll be 140, 150 amps. The easy one to score is the Lincoln Mark, the Thunderbird and Cougar of that same generation, what they used to call the MN12. The 89 and up MN12 Thunderbird or Cougar with the 3.8 will have that 180 across pattern, just like any GM product. A Chevrolet, Ford, or a Chevrolet, a Buick, the same thing. All right, so I just grab those and graft them into whatever I'm messing with. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so here's a question from Michael Roberts. Have you heard of Ford Motorsport J302 aluminum heads, 58cc 202 160? Yes, this was probably I want to say the 2nd or 3rd generation small block Ford head from Ford. The 302 series heads were in like the late 90s, early 2000s. There used to be a Mustang 5.0 class that everybody ran that was an unlimited 5.0 class. And these were the heads that, like everybody ran for about a week period in that class. I can't remember what the first ones were called. D302 or G302, something like that. But they were the smaller valve versions. They were the 188, 155, or whatever the heck. They were the stock valve size 302 head. And then they opened them up to this. And then I want to say your runners are 175cc or 160cc, something like that. But the one that the head that off these was the AFR 160, right? Mm-hmm. The 160 was the murderous head, and then it became the 185, and then from there it ended up being the 225 or whatever. But yeah, that's how that all started. All right, let's see what else we got.
I'm kind of going through them too.
Okay, Uncle Squirrel saying that what I always recommend it was the fill the block about halfway. What that does is it still leaves some room for coolant, but it also ties the cylinders together.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Is it usually, but if you go halfway as a number, just look at where the water comes in. Just go slightly below that, but you want at least 2 inches because most strokes are going to be under that, and that gives you about your 2-inch fill. Because the heat's only built in the top part of it. But yeah, he's correct. That's exactly what I do. Same thing. You go anything more than this, and you're just going to be building a ton of heat. It's going to take forever to cool that block down too. While you're looking for one, I did a thing. Do you know what I did?
What's that?
I moved a blue Dart from permanent storage into a garage on jack stands.
Man, is this the I don't know what you would call it, the gunslinger? The Gunslinger 66?
This is the 66 Dodge Dart that is going to the No Name Nationals.
And is it?
Yep.
Are you going to run it?
I'm going to officially announce that it's going to run at the No Name Nationals. I'm going for the 28 10.5 class.
Oh, you're going to take off. You're going to take Redbeard out, huh?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to go out there and just have fun with it because
is this the old motor that you were started putting together and you never finished it?
Yes, but it was finished, except for I just never put the heads on it because I left the heads off because the only reason for that is because when my new key member in the front, instead of running the fender walls, I was going to run under chassis headers. So I was going to mock up, flanges on it because it's got W5 flanges for it. But it's going to be the exact same thing. It does have concrete in the block. So the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up. I'm going to take the pistons out. I'm going to open up the gap on it, and I'm going to spray that sucker. Why not?
You got nothing to lose, man.
It's
already bought and paid for.
It's bought and paid for. It's sitting there. I'm gonna put some juice to it. I'm not gonna tell you how much I'm gonna put to it, but I'm gonna put some juice to it.
Well, good. I hope you do. Yeah. So here's Just Mopar Joe. Like I said, his ears must have been burning.
Oh,
people were talking to him. Say, hey, Joe, and I'm a little bit behind the power curve because we're literally 7 minutes behind this. So I don't know if you've left yet or not. But you have a bounty on your head, buddy. Let's see. John Cope from Cope Racing Transmissions put a bounty on you to to take Mopar Joe out.
And I matched it.
Pulido matched it, so now it's doubled.
So what was the numbers? John, is that
I want to say it was 50, 100, and 150. So it was 50 if you take Just Mopar Joe out in the brackets. It's 100 if you take Just Mopar Joe out with a Cope Racing Transmissions decal. And then it's 150 if you take Just Mopar Joe out with Cope Racing Transmissions decal and parts.
Okay, well, no one's going to be able to get the parts because you're not going to beat them with a Slant 6. Well, you might. I don't know. And I've got one part out there. But I'll match whatever. If you have a part of mine on there, which all you can have is a hold down or whatever. But, yeah, I'll match it the whole time. So, yeah, this is going to be awesome.
Man, why don't you just do the 150? That's it. You take them out and you got a Slant Daily decal. That's that.
Well, okay. You know what? Yeah, I'll just throw up the 150. Why not? You get a Slant Daily decal. You take them out, you get 150. So there it is. That's what it is.
Yeah, see, here you go. The voice of the No Name Nationals. He's talking to Ron Ward. They're paying to cut me down this year.
You can't have those same winner 2 years in a row. And you know what I'm going to do is the next whoever wins it, if you don't win it, someone else wins it, I'll put a bounty on that person. That's what we'll do. Each year, there'll be a bounty on the winner. How about that?
This is a good idea here. For cylinder heads, when you're looking at them as swap meet to find out if they're going to fit your application without being cut down much, Greg McDonald says, find out the stock height of the head from the valve cover rail to the head gasket surface, and then take a pair of calipers and measure both sides every time. Good luck. I think that's probably going to work until you find out there's some variances from the factory.
They're huge, and you figure that someone's going to cut this, they're going to take 10,000ths off. It's going to be hard to find that on calipers, especially on a unmachined surface like a valve cover.
You're not really sweating 10,000ths though, but when you're looking at 50 or 60, that's when you start sweating it. Let's see. Okay.
You know, people who are asking for a decal, when you get to the No Name Nationals, I have a stack of decals. Just come on over. I'll give it to you if you're in the bracket. I'll just walk through the brackets and I'll just start handing them out. You put it on there, you win. You got to show it's on there. It has to be on the car racing. How about that?
Oh, First Responder Garage, you're talking my favorite cylinder heads for Ford. They were everywhere and so underrated.
Yeah. GT40s. Yep.
Yeah, the GT40 and the P head was the P head was the ringer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? God.
Yeah.
I love the P head. You couldn't the way that chamber was designed is like it was to quench detonation. And man, you could put 13 degrees or 14 degrees initial in a 302 and it still wouldn't spark knock on 87. So I'd run it at 14 degrees with 93 octane gas and spray the crap out of it. Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, you're kind of behind again.
No, I'm not too far behind. I'm about 3 minutes behind. 6% recycled says, does the No Name Nationals have a 31 by 10.5 mud tire class? Not this year.
Not this year. But there's an area over there, maybe.
I don't know what's going to happen with next year. I don't know if Larry Jeffers is going to put a mud pit out at his track, but who knows? That's a giant question mark. What's the No Name Nationals going to hold next year? All right.
Oh, and also too,
Dakota's timeout saying that they want a donut outlaw class where we race on donut tires. That was Dallas's old idea. I think that would be so much fun.
You know what I always wanted to do is I did this when I was racing my Volkswagen. Have a 165-15 class. There was a Volkswagen class that you could do whatever engine you wanted, but you had to run 165-15 rear tires, basically front runners. They had to be on the rear. That class was so much fun because you could have a 1776 go up against a turbocharged, and that guy would just never catch traction. You'd be gone. It was good. You should do that 165-15 class.
Just something really, really rinky-dinky small.
Yeah, that a 165. That's your front runner. That's your front tire.
On the
Put
rear.
it in the back. Yeah. On the rear. That would be awesome.
You know, that might be something to kick around because I wonder how fast you could go on that little sucker.
I went 11 seconds in my Volkswagen on 165-15.
Did you?
11:07. Yep, I almost got to the 10s. I never hit a 10 on that. But in a Volkswagen, you do have the engine and the transmission over the rear end, and the damn thing weighed like 11. Was it? Oh, I think it weighed 1,300 pounds. I think is what it was with me in it.
Huh. Well, that's an idea right there.
And it's an easy, and there's no sidewall rules. 165-15. Boom, done.
Let's see. Mostly old parts. Ron saying, Dallas, what would you think about running a hard tire class, minimum 300 tread wear? I have no problems with that at all. I think right now, though, like say, No Name Nationals, we have a good format. We're going to need to just kind of, what John and I are trying to do is just refine what we had. So there's less confusion, less chaos, and then have a better product, right? We already know what we got. And then once you get that kind of ironed out, then you start changing little things here and there. And I think that's what we're shooting for, is to try to get it all completely refined first before we start adding anything or subtracting things.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Just like a race car, you got to drive it a few times to get it going.
Yeah, I'd love to do a hard tire class, and maybe we could do that where, you know, 1 year at the No Name Nationals, we have a hard tire class versus the 165
15.
yeah, 60-15 tire, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was a fun class, man. I got to tell you, everybody went in that class. So you had all these different racers, and then at the end of all the racing was done, and they would say, okay, 165 tires up, and basically the whole race went back up there to go race in the 165 class. It was awesome.
Well, Fab Race Mod Repeat says he's got a few bounties he wants to put out this year, probably for No Name Nationals.
Oh. Okay.
Doug Narden says, what the F? Now live chats cut to commercials? This sucks.
Really?
Oh, really?
Sorry, man.
Hey,
that must be more popular.
Well, no, I'll have to go in there and probably edit that this time, make sure or next time, so it doesn't do that. If they've implemented that now, I didn't change anything, so I'm assuming that I probably got to go in there and take it out. So Dakota says, yeah, that was the first time I've seen a commercial on a live stream. I have no idea. We don't see it on this side, and all I do is just, I click it for monetization just so the channel can maintain being monetized. I mean, it probably will make $100 by the end of the year. This channel does not bring in that much cash.
Hey, while we're on the subject, before I forget, Gary's Garage, does anyone talk to him or have any contact with him? And I would love to get in contact with him to if he knows it. I only saw that one video. I'm not sure if he builds engines or anything, but I could tell him some knowledge about how to make that small blocking part live at 7,000 RPM.
All right. The Big Block 402 channel says, my car loves the hard tire class. Maybe, next year we should try something different with a hard tire, or that 165 60-15, or both. I don't know. It definitely sounds like something that would be fun, because if you make the tire small enough, nobody can get down the track. You're all fighting it.
Yeah. Well, it takes all power out. It literally takes all the power out. And on a 165/15, there is no sidewall on that. So it doesn't there's no like 60 or anything. It's just 165 R15. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it makes it really easy. So there's really no difference on those.
So, all right, yeah, Doug, we'll go ahead and I'll see what I can do about next go round about removing commercials. I can't promise anything because I don't know what they've implemented, but if it's just started doing live stream commercials, I'll have to see if I can remove those. So, let's see. Boo. All right, that's a good question. Barrows says, yeah, I did that on my live once, so I leave it unmonetized during the stream and switch it for the rewatch so it doesn't interrupt. Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Okay, good.
So maybe that's something that's new that they implemented. Because I've never had that problem before. Let's see.
Go 2 down, mostly old parts. That's a good
Shane,
one.
we all know excessive oil pressure eats horsepower. What's a good way to modulate oil pressure?
Don't run a high pressure spring. Just don't run a high pressure spring. And I always I built my own little oil pump dyno. So basically it's just an oil block. It's just an engine block that has an oil on it, and then you could just put a restrictor on it so that way it comes out, and you just put a gauge, and so that way you could just pressurize it and see what kind of leakage you're getting. And then you can also put it into your block if it's a cam driven style of oil pump. You just put it in your block before you go, and then that way you could just raise up the oil pan before you actually bolt it down, and then just pressurize it and see what you're getting, and then just start playing with spring pressures. Dallas does it. We've talked about this a few times. That's exactly what I do on every single one.
I do the same, and
yeah.
Except for the way I do it is, I open up all the passages with the exception of the main passage in the block. I cannot open that one because that's the lifters sit in that main passage and control the oil flow within the engine. And so if I open it up, it opens it up wider than the band in the lifter. And that's where I'm limited. So what I do is I radius all the turns going into that one passage, and then everything else gets opened up and radiused, and it increases the oil flow versus your pressure. So there's a thing called Boyle's law that's like pressure is inverse to volume, right? Mm-hmm. And the more volume you have, the lower the pressure will be if all things are consistent, right? Now, what I have found is that at low RPM and with warm oil, the engine will have considerably less oil pressure than what is generally desirable.
So you have volume.
But you have volume. And so as long as you're meeting your bare minimum and the lifters aren't clattering, don't sweat it. Because the second you hit the gas, the oil pressure goes right up to 50 pounds or whatever.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. And I always try to tell if you have high pressure, you have low velocity, and if you have high velocity, you have low pressure. They're just inverse of each other.
Yeah.
So just keep that. I open up everything. In fact, we've talked about this. I always go the biggest oil passageways I can. So
that's what I do. Like there's nothing left.
Yes. Cut all the corners and everything. Yeah. So that way you're filling the whole thing with oil. And that way you always have a surplus of oil. And I always backfeed oil. So that way it's not coming from one source. So that way you're not
from both sides.
It come from both sides. So that way you cut the velocity down. You get the velocity lower, and that's the problem that I believe happened with Gary's garage. Is that's what was happening with my small block Mopars, is that number 1 and also to the number 4. The number 4 main is trying to shoot oil so fast past there. That's the first one where it actually has to make a 90-degree turn and go down. And then the number 1 is starving because it's feeding so much behind it, all those lifters. So that's a big source of the small block Mopar killing it.
What was funny was in the Buick community we call that a balance tube. And I have that oil pressure balance tube on my super stock motor. And when I put the picture of it up on YouTube, Professor P called me like, dude, what the hell is that tube? Is that a balance tube? Or, well, I don't remember what you called it, but you're like, I'm doing one on my 6.4 Hemi just like that. And it's ironic that you just put a picture up today.
Yeah. I actually did a video of it on my, if you go to Slant Daily Garage, I have one that's a Gen 3 Hemi. And what I'm doing is I'm using where the MDS, multi-displacement, ports are. I open those up and I'm basically using a -6 line. So I'm backfeeding to the number 4 and the number 2 that goes straight down to the main oil passageway. So I'm using a -6 that's coming off of that and backfeeding the whole thing. So that way you're cutting down on the velocity.
Let's see. First Responder Garage says, I'll be doing a 318 max effort with all factory parts. I'm interested in that oil mod.
Oh. Yeah.
Well, shoot an email over to slantdailygarage@yahoo.com.
Yeah.
And Shane can kind of give you the rundown on where to start and what to do.
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to be making some videos on what I did on my block, because I'm going to leave the crank in it, but I'm going to take the pistons out, and I'll show everyone what I did on mine to make it survive. And now mine's a solid lifter deal, but you can do something similar to this if you have a hydraulic roller or even hydraulic flat tappets. But yeah, I'll be doing videos pretty soon on it, because I got to get that thing running, get to the track, and get it running again for the no names. I don't want to be testing at the no names. I want to be conquering.
Hey, let's see here. Did you go with Rusty Samsel down to Holly Springs this weekend?
I went. I saw him down there. I went and saw him. He. What's funny is he took the 4-speed out. He went to an automatic in the car.
Oh, boo.
Yeah, I was listening to it. I was like, man, he's shifting awesome. Oh, wait a second, that's an automatic. I don't know. I didn't ask him. I didn't want to go there.
Oh, maybe because he's not doing Southeast Gassers anymore. That car has, that car is not was not built for Southeast Gassers. It's literally like a leftover from the early 60s.
Yeah, it was his dad's car.
Yeah.
He was telling me about. Yeah, it's been a race car its whole life.
Yeah. Well, it got crashed a year and a half ago.
Yeah, he crashed it, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if he went to an automatic, it probably was then. But just Mopar Joe saying the hard tire class would probably be a lot safer down track and keep the stock tire guys from having to source wheels and tires, and that's probably true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he's right on that. Yeah, a Volkswagen 165, it's really easy to fit in there, But it's such a small tire that you could basically, run the offset so that way it's on this side of the caliper,
Yeah, for like 60s and 70s styles cars, it would be easy because a lot of those cars came with like 15x5 wheels that will fit that 150 or that 165 tire.
Yeah.
But, all right, I'm all caught up, believe it or not. Let's see. First Responder Garage is saying I unwound my spring after testing my stock oil pump with my clearance. Who needs 80 psi at idle? God, dude.
Wow.
So I'll tell you something here ridiculous, and Professor P and I have said this before, and you may have already heard this before. When I first started doing oiling mods on Buicks, the rule of thumb for the Buick used to be 100 pounds of oil pressure at startup. A lot of the cars would blow the oil filter off at startup. Okay, so you'd have like a zip tied contraption around your oil filter to keep it from blowing off, or you'd have a high volume oil filter that you could run 100 pounds of oil pressure on. Okay, and then once it got warm, it would be 35 at idle, and then your 100 pounds at wide open throttle going down the track. Well, if you go back and look at the rule of thumb, the rule of thumb is 10 pounds per every 1,000 RPM that you intend to use the engine. So in a Buick's case, 100 pounds of oil pressure is insanely over the top. But what they're trying to make up for is the lack of oil volume that they could flow, because you increase pressure, you're going to increase volume, obviously, just because it's forcing more oil through there instead of relieving it around the bypass. Okay, so that was the idea behind it. The problem is this. I got a big block Buick where the camshaft itself has a thrust plate on the front of the cam. And that's what keeps it up against the number one main, and it keeps it from going any further back in the block. It had so much oil pressure that it actually shoved the thrust plate through the front of the block and machined the front of the block off.
Wow.
Right? And I'm like, okay, that's got to be just from oil pressure. If it's 100 PSI in the pump, how much pressure is that applying to the front of that cam? It can't be any more than 100 pounds per square inch. But how much square inches are on the front of that block? That thrust plate is only 1/4 of an inch wide, right? And it's 1/4 of an inch wide in a 3-inch circle. And if you think about it, all that pressure is ending up on that 1/4 inch wide, right? So it'd be virtually 100 pounds on the front of that. And I think that's what causes the problem. I really do. But so when I started opening up all the passages, the other thing on the Buicks is you'll have 90 degree or greater turns from the time it picks up the oil in the pan until it's going to number one cam bearing and feeds the engine. So when you open up all the passages and you radius the turns, now they're no longer 90 degrees or greater. Some of them are 60 degrees or 45 degrees. And it's a smooth transition. And plus the passage is even larger, so it makes it real simple to make that turn. And when I started priming them, you do your, like when I first started doing them, I could prime a stock engine, and you would have to set the drill on number one speed, and you would go number one. If you tried to go number two, it would slip the clutch, and it would go too fast, right? And it was too much pressure on the drill. Well, the more modifications I started doing, the more I noticed that I could go to number two speed, and I could run number two speed, and it runs 60 pounds of oil pressure at number two speed on the drill without slipping the clutch. And then it eventually got to the point where I could run it on the highest speed possible on the drill, not slip the clutch, and it would have 65 pounds constant or 60 pounds constant, and it would actually start to get warm. The oil would start to get warm and thin out, which was kind of cool. But it wasn't slipping the clutch of the drill, so that means there's not applying that much pressure to the front of that camshaft. And that's what I was looking at. If it's not applying tons of pressure to the front of the camshaft, it's not eating up a ton of horsepower. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But at 100 pounds of oil pressure, you've turned your oil pump into a hydraulic press. And let's see here. Okay.
While you're looking for one, Mopar Al, yes, I still do have that intake.
Okay. Front-wheel drive cars have the distinct advantage with the 165 SR15.
Exactly. That's why I wanted to bring it in with the 165, because that way you get the Hondas in there too. You get their little, all the cars, the Cobalts, you get them all.
Well, the idea that I like about the small tire is it doesn't eliminate any car.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's 28-10-5. Here's the problem I have with 28-10-5, and I've said this from the get-go. 28-10-5 is too big of a tire. Because when your limit is 28-10-5 and you're a guy that's got a shoebox Nova, guess what? Your limit is 26-9 or 26-8 even, right? You can't run that big a tire, so you're not even going to be competitive in the class unless the car's been back halved, four-linked, something, mini-tubbed.
Yeah. Yeah, the 165 takes care of all that.
Yeah, it does. I mean, so would a skateboard tire, but I do think that that's kind of funny going to a really, really small tire, and then you invite some serious no preppers down there to do it.
Oh yeah,
right. Like you'd have your no name nationals call out 165 class, and then you have like and I hate to say it here, like guys like the one that comes to mind, but it's just because I watched his stuff that he's been putting out here recently. Mike Murillo, who's been diagnosed with a stage 4 lung cancer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Yeah,
and
wow.
he had a couple of videos, but Mike Murillo was one of those guys that was always he was never afraid to dance on anything that you wanted to do, right? Mm-hmm. He would that Mustang 5-liter was actually part of the Pro 50 class when it was around back in the day, La Fonda, right? That thing has been on virtually every surface, every track, every configuration, any setup there could possibly be. That Mustang's been there, done that, got the T-shirt, and wears the beer hat koozie, right? I know Mike Murillo would be down for it.
Yeah.
He would have.
And you know, it's got to be a DOT tire. There's no, no. That was the whole thing too, is that they, just DOT tire that you could just buy right over the counter. No cuts on it, no modifications to tires, just a stock tire.
Big Block 402 channel. I put out a video today that reveals a name on my Coronet. Oh, well, I have to go look at it because I saw that green Coronet. It's actually pretty good looking, except for when you got to the passenger side fender, it was like all caved in. But they're not hard to find. That's the good thing about Coronets. They were a good looking car, and there was a lot of them sold.
Awesome. Yeah, so everyone go over there and check out his channel. I'll go there, check it out.
Mopar in 1978. So that Slant 6170 I'm working on in the 65 Valiant. It has an aluminum oil pump with metal cap. Are those common cause? All I see for sale is the all metal pumps.
No, this is factory, and in fact, every engine I have runs this aluminum oil pump. You can go to Amazon or eBay, and they sell rebuild kits for these, and then just buy yourself a rebuild kit. I prefer the aluminum one because it actually uses all 6 bolts, where the new cast iron ones or the metal ones only use 5. You can get some new old stock cast iron ones that have 6 bolts on them, but since I do oiling where I drill a port and then put a pressure relief in it, so that way it squirts oil onto the distributor gear or onto the cam gear. I like to use all 6 bolts, so that's why I run the factory ones. Plus, the aluminum pump from the factory is way over pumped to begin with, so you'll be just fine. I've never had a problem with oiling.
And never worry about a rebuild kit for an oil pump. Here's the thing that's the common misconception. If you see like a Chevrolet guy or Ford guy, every time they rebuild the motor, they just throw a whole new pump in there, and they don't even take them apart, right? They just buy a new pump and put it on. And if you like Mopars, the Buicks, a lot of them have, AMC have an oil pump in the timing chain cover, and those people are actually commonly just rebuild the pump each time, right? You can do a lot of modification stuff to that pump when you're in there, and you can see how it works, and you can also set the end lash on it. And end lash is what really makes them work well.
And survive.
Yeah.
And blueprinting them.
That's
just
the
getting
big
whetstone. Yeah. In fact, I've said this before. The engine that's in my Dart, I've only had one oil pump in it this whole time. That in the 66, since the beginning of time. Literally, it's been modified. I take it apart every single time. I've blown up engines and taken it apart, cleaned it, and then just emery clocked everything, put it back together. It's a great blueprint pumped, and I've never had a problem with it. So you rarely have to replace your oil pump if you take it apart and clean it up.
Yeah, and it's just rebuildable. There's so much. It's actually a big learning experience. You can blueprint the pump. It'll take less power to run it. It'll give you a better end result. It's a much better deal all the way around. Beer and Rose Garage says, and the imports are more than welcome at the No Name Nationals. All they have to do is call out each other or whoever they want, or beat just Mopar Joe in the bracket for the bounty. No Name Nationals has the most class. It's just a lot of fun because nobody takes. That's one thing is, if you go to like a professional drag race, and I'm not saying No Name Nationals is not a professional drag race, but it has its own set goals in mind. If you go to like a big, like say a U.S. Nationals or a Winter Nationals or whatever else have you, okay? Those people take themselves way serious, and they're way into it. And if you go to the No Name Nationals, the whole entire idea of the event is don't take yourself so seriously. Just have fun and enjoy it.
We're all friends till we hit the line.
Yeah. And it's tailored around. I mean, who else has a freaking monkey bike class? Right? And I just remember Lars last year from JB's Little Shop, LP94, if he's on here. He has this big old beard, right? And you could see his beard like literally flapping in the breeze over his left shoulder as it's going down the track.
That was awesome. Yeah, that was good. That was good.
All right. Okay, First Responder Garage says, is there a limit on No Name National class for tires? I have never drag raced. I've only built and tuned for drag racers and circle cars. No, not really. There is one class that has a limitation on tires, and that is the 28-10-5 class. And it's named that because that's the biggest tire you can run. You can run anything smaller than that. You just can't run anything larger than that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Yeah, the Big Block 402 channel saying I watched his video yesterday. He's talking about Mike Murillo. Mike Beats It.
Oh, so he posted a video on it and all that stuff?
He posted a video on his Mike Murillo's channel saying, hey, this is the deal. I got stage 4 lung cancer. We're going to make the best of this while we can. And then he's doing a YouTube thing now where I'm thinking that he might be doing that because he's going to be limited on what he can do. And he's about, he's making preparations that in case the shit really hits the fan, that his family's got something set up for him.
Yeah.
That's how I'd be looking at it. And if you get a chance, go over there to Mike Murillo's channel and give him some thumbs up, some likes, some subscribes. Hell, even send the guy a super chat if you want.
Yeah.
That first responder garage. Do not buy 2811.5s expecting to run the 2810.5 class. It just won't happen.
Yeah. And don't get W's.
Mostly old parts. Those people take themselves too seriously. Dallas, you just described lights out. Yeah, that's what it. And Ron was there to witness this. We really just had an idea. Let's just say an idea of what the No Name National should have been like in a bag, a brown paper bag that has some grease on it from a tuna sandwich. Okay, and we all kind of just. Once John and myself and Ron and Barkley and Deke all kind of just chatted about what we were shooting for with this thing, everybody had their own somewhat interpretation of what that meant, and it rolled out to be one of the best things I've ever done. Because if you weren't there for the T-shirt call-outs from the tower, right? Because it happened with, I don't even remember what was the first one? Family Garage, maybe? Somebody brought some T-shirts up to the tower and said, hey, just give these away. And we didn't even have a freaking idea how to do it. And we just, Ron and I kind of looked at each other like, man, maybe we should just say the first one up here with a Lincoln-headed penny wins. You got a shirt. And it turned out to be the greatest thing that we'd ever done. And what was funny is at Jeffers Motorsports Park the rest of the year, that's exactly what they did. They gave away T-shirts just like that for the rest of the year because Barkley was so inspired by that, right? And what happened is when we gave away the first couple of T-shirts, it wasn't even 20 minutes. We had somebody else up there giving us a pile of T-shirts to give out and all kinds of decals. And next thing you know, there was it Roadkill Customs at first?
Yeah, Roadkill Customs, I think, was the first one.
Okay.
Yeah, they were right across the way from me.
Yeah, it may have been them that has the first, but we just had such a good time giving them away. It became infectious to the people in the stands because Ron and I were just having fun giving the things away and thinking up of weird ways to give them away, right? And it got to the point where people were literally running around from the spectator side to the tower to get a T-shirt. So, good time.
Hey, while you're doing that, 38 POS Racing, I appreciate you looking for that Dodge. It looks awesome. At this point in my life, I don't have time to buy one or the place to put it because I still have 2 cars in San Diego still. And I just don't have time to do a body swap right this second. So,
dude, you still got to go to San Diego to get some cars?
Yeah, 65 and a 64 Dart.
So when's the road trip?
I shouldn't have said that the wife only watches some of this. Yeah, she's always wanted a 65 Dodge Dart. So, remember, I used to build his engines for him. He used to run the Valiant. God, I can't even think of his name right off the top of my head. I can't believe he did Bull Run. Remember? I can't even think of his name right now.
Dang it, I remember. That was a TV show.
Yes. And so, I bought a 65 Dart from him. It's sitting in his house down there. And then I I still have another car sitting at his house in his property out there in Lakeside. So, yeah. I can't believe
Dude, we need to make a trip out to San Diego. And, man, maybe we should do that. We should just family caravan out there. I got my travel trailer. We'll just freaking stay in that thing. We'll take 40 and then jump on 66 on the way out there, right?
Paul was his name. Paul.
With the Challenger, right?
No, he had the Dart, the Duster. He had the red Duster. He had the red Valiant, and then he had the blue Dodge Dart.
Huh.
And he always would park in the big green bus underneath that tree out there at Verona.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the one tree at Verona.
Yeah, the big, the one massive tree in the back there. Yeah,
yeah. On the top row. 38 POS Racing says Professor P should dig more on crew cab Dodges.
That's like what I was just talking about. Yeah, so I appreciate looking for it, but right now I just can't do it in my time of life right now.
All right. Fab Race Mon Repeat. Just having fun and enjoy it. That's why we do it. That's the whole point. That's why I started doing the AHRA, was just focusing on having fun. That's what we're losing from the drag racing. Like, we're getting too focused on stackers and toter homes and the whole 9 yards, when the reality of it is, just go there and freaking have fun. There's only one person walking away with the prize money. Go there, be the other 99.9%. Know you're going to lose and just have fun doing it. And if you win some cash, great. Win some cash, But it doesn't have to be anything more than that. And John Wilburn saying that Ron Ward knows how to roll with it. He's a real pro. And I think, if it wasn't been for Ron Ward, the No Name Nationals would have never turned out what it was. Mm-hmm. Ron was very open-minded with the whole thing. Yeah. Bad Tree Production said that helped people keep entertained when the track was slicked down. Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't out there giving out I should have just kept giving out T-shirts and let Barkley take care of that, but God, that was a mess.
I saw you afterwards. You just looked spent. You and
exhausted.
John were just done.
Yeah, I was wiped, man. John and I probably were so dehydrated that, like, literally, if you took a shower, one drop of water would not even go down the drain. It would just be sucked up into, like SpongeBob, right? We were so dehydrated.
It's funny.
So Ron's saying that I got a T-shirt for the first person that can bring me a nickel. Dude from spectator side nearly broke his leg jumping out of the stands.
I saw that.
Good times.
That. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, but you know what? The good thing was no one got hurt. Everybody had a good time, and it was something that everybody's going to remember, right? Not one person's ever going to forget that. And I see Barkley to this day, and he's like, man, that No Name Nationals, that was one badass event.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Oh, Bear Rose, yeah.
Okay, Professor P, do you need 65 Dodge Dart floors? Tell me quick, because I'm about to cut these, and they are in good shape. If you need them, I'll cut it whole for you and do something different.
Here's the thing, though, is that I come from a little place called California, and if it has that much rust on it, the car's worthless to me. So every car I've bought has literally less than a quarter of rust. I'm dead serious. So thank you. I appreciate it. But I can tell you right now, there's no rust on any one of my cars because
Okay, so we're going to back this up, and we're going to be for reality for like everybody else. So just move your mouth for a second. I'm going to dub you in here. I'm spoiled. I'm from Southern California. I've never had a car that is even thought about rusting. So I don't think I'll take your floor plans, Bear Rose.
But thank you for the offer. But I can say that no, that's a big no-no where I came from. That was like, even if it had just a little spot, basically in the drip rail, move on.
Well, and the sad part is, Mr. Bear Rose there is from what they call the high desert, right?
Oh,
the Idahoan area, and or the Idahoan area. Mm-hmm. The cars up there, that's where us Midwesterners would go without having to go to California to get them, because they would. I don't think they salted the roads up there at all. I don't think they used salt. And
for me, the prime location is like Victorville area, Hesperia. That's the high desert just off the
In
15
California,
there.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's on this side of the mountains. It's on the east side of the mountains. So all that water gets squished, and really nothing makes it over that mountain ever. And so it's basically at the top of the Cajon Pass. So that's where the Desert Dog, my 68 came from, was that car and that place. And it literally, there's zero rust on it.
That's where I went and bought all of the. You remember my white Ford when we got it was like all wrecked up and stuff, and I went and got front and rear bumpers from up there because I knew for an hour drive and you get something that has no rust on it, zero. Yeah. It's never even seen water. Right. So
pretty much.
Yeah.
Not even morning moisture,
Yeah. Doug Narden says, cruise to San Diego, taking a ball game just to make sure the Padres lose. Go Tigers. Grab some good tacos, grab some cars, head home. My dad used to do this. When I first joined the Navy, my dad was a retiree from the Navy, so that's who forced me to go into the Navy. Well, I wouldn't say forced, but conned me in, right? Told me what a great deal it was, but really let me in on the secret. He would come out and see me once a year when I was out in San Diego, and I went to school for the first 2 years to learn how to do my job in San Diego, and we were in the best location there was, Point Loma, right? Point Loma in like 1994, 1995 was a really high-end area.
Yep.
And, man, what a great place to be. My dad would come out and he would come out and see me out there. He would stay at the Navy Lodge on base, and we would grab a car. When he come out, he would take $2,000 out of his savings. We'd find a car for about $2,000, and then he would drive it back to Illinois, where I was from, and whatever we normally got vaporized in Illinois. And like if it was a 70 miles car, it was gone by 79, right? They were just rusted junk in the Midwest. And he pulled this. We got this cherry 70 Cutlass one time, and I mean it was cherry. And the guy, the guy that owned it, it was his first car, so it was a one-owner car, but he had it for 40 years or some ridiculous number, right? 30 years. And you know how most people just I do the brakes on it in the wintertime or whatever. This dude literally picked a big job and had it done every winter, right? So, because he was a teacher. So during Christmas break, he would have all this stuff done during Christmas break. So when we got the car, it had a paint job on it that was less than 10 years old. It had all new glass in it. He had all new glass put in this thing, right? All new weather stripping and trim. He'd have the original trim taken off, buffed, and reinstalled. And this is the kind of crap the guy did every year. So it was above and beyond maintenance. And I think my old man paid him $2,400. And I remember he said, "Hey, would you take $2,300?" The dude literally closed the garage door, walked inside the house, right? And I'm like, crap. Over $100? Okay. So,
Yeah.
We knocked on the front door again. "Hey man, here's your cash." "All right. Here's the title." And then we hauled it out of there. He hauled it back to Illinois. It sold within 10 hours. Within 10 hours of him getting back home, he sold it. And then the kid that bought it wrecked it the next day. Right. Yeah. And it was so sad.
That sucks. One thing that does come from California that's funny, we were actually just talking about it this week, is pitting of the windshield from sand. If you drive across the desert, if you look at my truck, my Dodge truck, it's got little specks in it, and what that's from is from the sand. When you get the sandstorms, it pits the glass, and it's funny. You can tell when a car is from the desert because the glass will be pitted. That's the only problem that you get with a car from the desert is the glass. The windshield has to be replaced.
So John Wilburn saying that I can truly say every single person contributed to the success of the No Name Nationals, and they did. Everybody had a good time and was upbeat about it and was kind of just didn't know what to expect. So let's just enjoy it and have fun. Let's see. Bad Tree Productions saying having my AHRA membership card on me won this guy a free shirt. Join the AHRA today. Yeah. You got a free shirt out of it at No Name Nationals. So.
Awesome. Oh, by the way, I'm just going to brag. I'm number 1, by the way. So lifetime member.
Oh, member.
Yeah.
No, it's never going to change.
Yeah, it's never going to change.
Yeah. 38 POS Racing. You had a T-shirt for the first person to turn on their headlights on the spectators. There was a guy jumped out of the bleachers for that too.
I didn't hear that one. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah. Let's see. If you can afford $7 a gallon gasoline, you can afford rust-free cars. Well, here pretty soon you won't have it. We need to go out there and do a junkyard run, Shane.
Yes, because they're going to ban cars at 35.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
It'll be plethora of great stuff. But the sad part is, like, the oldest thing will be like a 5-liter Mustang.
Yeah.
You know, gosh, I just remember the '90s were the heyday, man. It was like wall-to-wall muscle cars.
You could literally get a muscle car for $400 to $500.
Well, you remember that memory lane that was down there by the AM/PM, right? Mm-hmm. Dude, I remember going that memory lane, and they had a row of Dodge Demons and Dusters. A row, like a literal row. Mm-hmm. I had never seen so many in my life. But it's also the only place I'd ever been where I walked in the junkyard, and there's 428 FE motors in the junkyard. Right?
That place is where I got my taillights from my 66. Those were from that place right there.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Let's see.
There was a question that someone was asking me earlier that do California's rust underneath where the pedals are at? Absolutely no. There is no rust.
Okay, so the California car has its own downfalls. No rust is the big plus, right? Yeah. But the thing that no one will talk about is the interior will be burned to a crisp.
Yep.
It will have wires for seats, right? That's all. It will. The UV vaporizes anything that's plastic in there or vinyl. And
also, too, rats, because you're in the desert. So they eat everything. All your wiring's done, and all your interior's done. It's gone. You know, it's funny you say that about that, because in California, you would go outside and you felt like you were getting burnt. Like you could feel the sun.
Yeah, I know. And it's only 80 degrees. You're like, holy crap.
But you move here and it's different, even though it's humid and stuff. But you can go outside and it doesn't feel like you're actually just being
Well, have you noticed in the summertime when it is 10 degrees hotter than it is in California, but everything around you is absolutely lush green?
Yes. Yep.
I did notice. It's amazing. Yeah. So let's see. Mostly old parts. Ron Ward is saying, Shane, is it common for drop leg boosters to come loose on Holley 4150 carburetors? If so, what's a good fix for replacing the boosters?
Just pop that. If you take the back of the metering block off, there's a little brass plug in there. Just take some sort of screw in there and just pop that out, and that's the easiest way to change the booster on those. And yeah, they do come loose because it's just a little brass pin that holds it in. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Yeah. So if you look at your Holley and you look at the back of the metering block, you'll see where the fuel comes up the metering block, goes through that little brass hole, and then goes into the booster, right? And so then if you take that out, you can slide that in and out. And they sell different diameters of those brass plugs. So yeah, that's kind of common. That actually happened on my quick fuel. They came loose because it's got down legs on them, and the down legs are basically unsupported, and the car would come up and hit the ground all the time, and it came loose. I could wiggle it.
Well, go be a dad there, Blake. We'll catch you next Wednesday.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by.
Let's see. Well, okay. Sandblasted. You should see the windshield. My 62 Valiant wipers wouldn't matter even if they worked. If you ever had a sandblast cabinet, the first thing that gets non-functional is the glass.
Mm-hmm.
The very
that's what
first
it looks
thing.
Like. Yeah. That's exactly what it looks like.
I think it has just something to do with the properties of the glass itself. When it hits when the sand hits it, the paint actually lives longer than the glass. Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Clint Street Machines here is saying that there was a memory lane in San Fernando Valley too, had everything. Yeah, the one in San Diego turned into something else. I can't remember what it turned into.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But it was never the same after it changed. They said it's going to be the same junkyard, but it was not. By far, it was not. The memory lane is the ones that I really like the most. Yeah, lots of miles on California cars too. Everyone commutes. The older ones weren't too bad though.
No. But whenever you get a car, you're ultimately going to take it apart. Usually, I mean, every car I've ever got, especially a muscle car, the engine comes out. I look at the tranny and then pop the cover of the diff.
I'll give you an idea of so my experience in San Diego when I first got there was first I get off the plane and you're seeing stuff like 20 years older than where I was from, right?
Mm-hmm.
You literally had El Caminos and let's see, I had a S10 and I had probably the newest car on the road at the time, and it was like a 2-year-old S10. Everybody else had stuff that was fairly old, and they really like to stick between 64.5 and 6 because I think anything newer than that, they had to be emission standard. Or no, it was 65 was the cutoff.
65, but then after it went to 20 years back, and then it stopped at 75. So 75 and older now doesn't have to be smog there. My Volkswagen was a 67, and when I had it, it had to be smog still, and all I had to have was a vacuum advanced distributor. That's the only smog equipment on at the time.
I unfortunately scored myself a muscle car out there, and it was a 66 Mercury Cyclone GT, the same as a Fairlane GTA, right?
So it had to be smogged.
It had to, and here's the sad part. It had to be smogged, and it had to have this stupid 4150 Ford Fomoco weird-looking carburetor on it. And it was like literally a 1-year only thing. It had a California smog pump on a damn muscle car, a 390 big block muscle car. I never even knew that even existed.
Yeah.
And I failed inspection, and I took it up there what can they possibly, a PCV valve, right? I mean, what could they ask me for here? And I pulled up there, and the guy's like, wrong carburetor, because it had like a Carter AFB on it. And then, what was the other thing that he nailed me on, right? Oh, I didn't have the smog pump. Well, I started looking for that stuff, and the damn bracket for the smog pump was like $250. Mm-hmm. And then I needed the correct pulleys and all that. And I started thinking, man, how did this car not have any of this before? Well, it probably did from day one. But day 2, it was all gone, right? Yeah. And then
if you spin it robs power.
Right. Then they implemented smog in 90 or 91. Uh-huh. And then the car had never seen the road since then. I was the first one to put it on the road. It sat for a long time when I got it. But that was the muscle car I ended up with. And I tell you what, you'd be hard pressed to find another one just in your neighborhood, because them suckers are rare, rare. I didn't even know what it was when I first saw it. I'm not going to lie. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Jonathan Couchy says, I watched a Just Mopar Joe video on a machine shop he went to where they were mocking up Eagle 5.7 heads for a CNC program. They put in the larger 6.4 valves and ended up with 370 CFM once ported.
Yes, and in fact, I was going to go that way with mine, but since I didn't have the bigger bore, I just have a 6.1. I wanted to keep the smaller valve for 1, velocity, also 2, shrouding the valve, because once you start putting that bigger valve in there, the 6.4 has got the biggest bore, so you're going to really shroud the valve. And it will run 370 CFM, but what you really want to look at is the 300 and the 400 numbers. That's where you really want to look. It should be well over 300 by at least 350 or 400, and that means you're going to be flowing over 300 CFM of air for the majority of it. So you can basically get your camshaft and then look at, was 200 thousandths of lift or whatever, 250 lift at the lobe. And that will tell you how much duration you're going to run at over 300 CFM. But 370 only happens one little tiny second, so you want to keep that open as long as you can. But yeah, I've seen that, and I was going to do that, but I wanted to stay with the smaller valves in the 5.7 so I can unshroud them, keep that velocity high, so I could build more torque. That was the whole idea of it.
Yeah, your mid-range.
That's it.
Your mid-range will suffer. That's what the Hemis were. That was the problem with the Hemis. The second gen, in my opinion, was they were made for wide open throttle, all RPM, everything on the line, and they were absolutely sucked anything drivability and daily commuting wise.
Mm-hmm.
because the ports were just so damn big and square.
Yeah, they Hammies will run you down.
And it's the same way with the Cleveland. I mean, they're great for drag racing. They were terrible on the street. That's why that 455 Buick used to reign supreme on the street. All right. Let's say Doug Norton is out of here. He's heading to bed. See you next week. I'll see what I can do about getting that. Get rid of that mid live commercial. All right. What else we got here? Fab Race Mod Repeat says Dallas had a 69 Montego with about 600,000 on it. It had an abrasion line near the top of the windshield. Oh, probably just from California, huh? Yeah, well, see, and Chris Cox here is Fab Race Mod Repeat from Northeast Dragway in North Carolina, Hereford, North Carolina. But the thing is, they're only about an hour from Norfolk, Virginia. And San Diego, California, and Norfolk, Virginia have one thing in common, and that's the two biggest naval ports in the United States. And the sailors, they all go to school in one of those two places. So if you go to school in San Diego and you end up in a ship in Norfolk, guess what? The San Diego car ends up in Norfolk, and it's vice versa, right? Yeah. So that's where a lot of that comes from. All right.
Man, we're almost 9 minutes left. That was fast.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a good time tonight, I think, chatting it up. But I guess, with 9 minutes left to go, we'll go ahead and start winding things down. Anything you want to plug, Shane?
Just that I'm going to be doing my 66 Dart. I'm going to be doing my blue 66, and I'm going to go after the 28, 10, 50 class. And I'm going to put some juice to that sucker. So just watch. You'll see some things coming up soon. I haven't posted a video in a few weeks. I just basically, actually it's been longer than that. I've just been taking care of myself for a little while, and I just took a little break from it until I figured out exactly what I wanted to do. So
I had to do the same thing. I'll let everybody know. I've been fighting my diabetes meds since October of last year, and the VA has been playing with my meds, and none of them have been working out. So I'm actually back to what I was on before, but at a lower dosage, and this seems to be working. But I also quit smoking and quit drinking. So we're gonna see how all this plays out for me.
Yeah, good.
So yeah, and so I've just been working on myself somewhat, but I also have been. I had an opportunity to seal the rest of the season for the AHRA this year by selling a Buick engine. So I figured I would take advantage of that this early in the season. Securing the rest of the year means that I don't have to sweat anything for the rest of the year. So I took advantage of that. I'm going to try to sell this Buick engine and keep it floating for the rest of the year. So that way we don't have to sweat any of it. But other than that, if you have the opportunity, get on the AHRA eBay page and grab yourself some merch. If not, no big deal. If you want to be at the No Name Nationals, you better do it now before we get down to the last week, because the last week the pre-sale tickets will stop being online, and you'll be forced to buy at the gate.
And waiting in line.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's going to be tickets available, I'm sure. But you don't get to save money that way. I want to say it's you save $5 person, I think, at the gate. Or the pre-sale tickets for spectator. And then, so either way, that's where, I guess, hopefully you have the opportunity to do that. So jump on there before we pull them down, and that won't happen until essentially the second to last week of September. But
I do want to say one more thing real quick, that this year Drag Week was announced, and it's the exact same time as the No Name Nationals.
Oh, is it really?
Yes. So, but I am going to the No Name Nationals this year. So, yep.
Oh, I didn't know that they put it on the same exact week.
Same week. Yep.
Well, last year it was a week before, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I did Drag Week, came back, changed my jetting on it, and then drove back out the very next weekend.
And so it's on the same week as it was the year before. But what happened was we last year's No Name Nationals was the date that it was on was our backup date. We originally had another date and they double booked it, and so we put it on whatever we did, September 30th to October 1st. So, but it fell right on top of.
There was another event that was going on.
Well, what's
Something
the one
in
that
Texas.
happened out? No, it was Arizona. The one that they do.
LS Fest.
No. It was the one that Motor Trend guys do in Arizona, right? I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, the duct tape drags.
Yes, duct tape. It was on the same weekend as duct tape. So we moved it forward one weekend so we could get off top of everything, and now it's on top of drag week.
Yeah.
But, all right, well, no big deal.
You know that I did duct tape drags with my first year here in Tennessee, and I drove my dart from here straight to the duct tape drags in Tucson. I drove straight.
You know,
over
the sad part about that duct tape drags is like, it's literally those guys racing their stuff, and you're out there having fun at their event.
Yeah.
And that's like the opposite of what the No Name Nationals is. It's like the No Name Nationals is the event for you, right? Like so.
And it's a bigger event. That's what I like about the No Name Nationals. It's a Friday and a Saturday event, where theirs is like it's a cruise on Friday. You get there, there's really nothing happening on Friday. Then Saturday is like the event, and then Sunday it's over with. So,
Well, and John's saying it right. You know, there are all kinds of drag weeks now. Impossible not to conflict. Last year, duct tape drags and Holly's Ford thing. You know, and I've said this before, and if hopefully it kind of rings true. Any single, gearhead out there can name 5-6 events throughout the year. Yep. But if you think about it, there's only 52 weekends in a year, and only about 40 of those can we get anything going, right? So if you can name 5 events, every person has 5 events, right? They're all going to be on top of each other, right? It's just where you're located, what you're willing to go to, and what your focus is. All right. So Colleen's asking me about the current AHRA schedule. I actually have held off on the AHRA schedule because, one, I'm wanting to put it in the rule book, and 2, and if I do that, maybe I won't be able to do what I wanted to do. So, but I've been holding off on it because I'm trying to test. This weekend is the first event, and I'm trying to test out this 28-10-5 NA class. And if it works out pretty good this weekend at Northeast Dragway, I'm going to roll it into the rule book and make it a class for the AHRA. Ooh. And that way we can maybe have another one or 2 throughout this year somewhere else. Okay, so that was the idea. And I didn't want to put the schedule out and then it looked like I'm doing nothing at the other places.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I'm holding off. And I figured, there's a few people out there that are butthurt that I don't have a rule book out yet, or I don't have a schedule out yet, but F them, right? I don't really care. I'm trying to get it right. And then what I'm trying to do is the rule books cost, I lose money on every single rule book. The AHRA loses money every which way. You couldn't afford to pay me what the rule book costs to get it made. But then I came up with this genius idea this year. Why not just make a rule book for 2 years and then it costs half as much? Or maybe even 3 years and it costs a third as much because it's for 3 years. And then I can get them printed in bulk. I can get 3 years worth, and then I can actually sell them and you be happy with the price.
Mm-hmm. Or just put it online for download and you can print it out yourself.
Well, I do that too. I do that as well.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Because most people don't need the whole rule book. They only need what pertains to them. So they can usually just print out those few pages.
Yeah, but there is a lot of those older folks that actually like having the paper rule book.
Oh,
so Bear Rose is saying exactly, Dallas. The No Name Nationals is about everyone that shows up, including the spectators, show up with a car and have just as much fun. The No Name Nationals is about everyone without a name. And that was exactly the idea behind it, was that the spectator had just as much fun as the racer / driver / builder did, right? So we tried to have as much fun as we could with everyone there. Tom Brown, Dallas, try the keto diet. They have used it for epilepsy since the 50s. Okay, as an FYI, and I'll run down this real quick. I actually used the keto diet to beat diabetes when I first got it, which was 2018. I got it in September of 2018 is when it first hit me hard. And I went to the hospital, and they said, you have diabetes, and you're going to prick your finger, take these pills every day. And I said, F that, I'm going on a keto diet, because I read that a keto diet actually is very similar to a diabetic diet, except for it has the ability to reset your body, right? So that's what I did. And I won. And I didn't have diabetes. And they took me off the meds. They took all the stuff away from the VA. And then I got the vid. Yeah, that's right, the Chinese bat flu. And the next thing you know, I end up with diabetes again. And I don't know how it happened or why. It's just, that's what happened. And and I couldn't figure out what was going on, but it took a while to figure it out. So, So hopefully I'll be good to go here in a few months and get my mind back without being rattled and non-focused and all that.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So let's see. Clint's asking, do the AHRA shirts run big or small or anything like that? Actually, I've been told they're all probably about the same. The newest shirts I have is the black ones. They run a little bit smaller only because I have two different sets of those. The first ones I had done were Gildan, and then they ran out of the sizes for Gildan shirts. So I got stuck with the logistic problem that everybody else did, right? To where you couldn't get a shirt. So you know why your AHRA red shirts that I got? I was absolutely out of shirts, and that's when the logistic crisis started. And the guy says, "Hey man, you need some shirts printed? You're the first guy to come in here in 4 months." Right?
Wow.
I'm like, holy crap. I said, yeah, I need some shirts printed, and it looks like I need to throw you some business so that you can stay afloat. And he's like, well, we can print whatever shirt you want as long as it's red, right? Because that's the only color of shirt you could get.
Wow.
So we ended up having to create a whole new thing to put on the shirt. And that's where I thought, you know what, I could do that rustic looking AHRA logo, and it's a red shirt, so you just leave the red printing out, right? And it would still look good because it's outlined. And that's where we came up with that. And I helped keep my T-shirt guy afloat. Oh, gosh, 4 months? I bet he was sweating bullets. But he probably also was killing it during COVID. But I don't know. A lot of guys were.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, it's that time. We're out of here until next Wednesday. If you like the thumbnail, leave me a middle finger in the in the comment section, and we'll see if we can get another one. Next week I might do something else. Yeah. We'll see. I think next week is going to be BJ and the Bear. But, yeah. And if you don't know what that is, kiddos, go out there and Google it. All right. Enjoy yourself a good time. Anything, Shane? I'll see you guys next week.
I'm good.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, we're out of here.
You guys take it easy, man. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah.